Good morning. Welcome to Unity Longmont Spiritual Center on the 10th of October, 2021. And we are blessed to have Reverend Dan Kendrick with us to give us a talk, which is always inspiring, and to lead us in a meditation. And Christina, Hildebrandt, and her harp will provide beautiful music. So Christina, let's start with a piece of music, please. Okay. How beautiful. Thank you, Christina. So it's at this time that we go into prayer together by taking a breath. Beloved presence, everywhere present. We join this morning to celebrate our community, to be inspired by and to celebrate Dan and Christina. Our hearts go out to each other and to everyone in the world. We live in this amazing life with its ups and downs, and always accompanied by love and gratitude. And for that, we say thank you. And so it is. And more beautiful music, please. Thank you, Christina. So let us open our hearts and minds to Reverend Dan Kendrick, who always inspires with his words and his silence.
Well, welcome everyone. Is my volume okay? All right, okay. If it dims or changes, and you just give me a signal somehow, I can work with it. Yeah. It's very good to be here with you. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I do believe a divinely inspired melody is worth 1,000 or more words. And it reminds me of that divine melody inside. Of course, I think the challenge always is how do I get to that divine melody and hear those songs of love and upliftment. So one thing I like about these times together with you is we're focused on the spiritual. We're focused on the light. We come together. And so I invite you to do that however you do it. I'll do it however I do it. And let's see what can be revealed. I'm going to adjust my screen a little bit here. All right. Okay. There's a little arrow on the back side of the Zoom screen that was kind of distracting me. So I did what I could to cover that up without taking myself off the Zoom entirely. But it seems, in terms of distractions, it seems like there's always a good distraction going on. And I think a lot of the work is how do I stay connected to my source, that source of loving, source of light, and not be affected by my distractions. But there's also can be distractors. I don't know about you, but I have my share of detractors. And the detractor usually has some kind of crisis going on. Usually there is, with the detractors, a kind of emergency situation, whereas this is not handled immediately, something terrible will happen. However, I find that usually a crisis situation the source of it is a misunderstanding. I think it's true. We all have limited points of view. And when we're looking at situations, about all we can see is what we can see. But if we're looking at a situation that we're interpreting it to be a crisis, chances are we may only be seeing a very small part of the situation. And if we could see the entire picture, we'd realize that this is not a crisis. This is just something that's being worked out in the divine plan of unfoldment. So maybe this talk this morning is directed to me. Whether or not it has a landing place in you, I don't know. But I think so far I'm at least talking to myself. However, I don't really know how to talk to myself without also talking to you. Once again, I'm defaulting to the silence only because I find that personally to be the purest form of communication and the most profound. I was working with a group actually last week, and the theme of what we were working with was relating effectively to the one inside who reacts, relating effectively to the one inside who reacts. I was recalling a learning, growing, and testing time for me that was brought forward perfectly through spirit in the form of another person on a committee I was working on, a group I was working on within a spiritual group. God bless our spiritual groups, where we had the opportunity to work out our learning and growing. And I was the chair of this committee, and the person called me and said, Dan, and this is just not my experience, it's also other members of the committee's experience, that I feel like you're trying to sabotage our efforts. And that was just a really, she knew exactly how to hit the button, the panic button in me, the one who reacts, went into full expression. And my heartbeat immediately went up. Felt this thing in my stomach, my solar plexus shaking. And I immediately went into a defense of myself. And what was I defending? Now this is how I'm talking to you now. These realizations only came later. At this particular moment, I was in it. My reactive one had taken over. And that conversation did not end well. In fact, it ended in abruptly hanging up. Me attempting to defend and protect my self-image that I was fiercely attached to. That I would never be one who would sabotage a spiritual project. So it immediately showed me that I had work to do. Because when I hung up on that phone call, the results of that exchange, they were heavy on me. I was out of balance. I was preoccupied with, how could she say such a thing? This is terrible. You know, you get the picture. So I'll make a very long story short. The thing that struck me about this was that, number one, and there were some questions, like why did I feel the need to defend myself? And I realized I felt that need because I was holding up a self-image of myself. And she had pierced that self-image. And when I looked at it, like the question was, well, then number one, are you capable of sabotaging this project? And the answer is most definitely. I'm a very good saboteur, thank you, when I want to be. So then, okay, so you're capable of doing it. Number two, is it possible you are doing it and you just don't know it? And that question, I had to say, yes, that's quite possible. That's happened to me before. I've done things and I was unconscious of the effects it was having, and I was unconscious of what I was doing and the results. So then the third one was the big question. So then, wouldn't that be good news if those were true? If you were sabotaging, wouldn't it be good information for you to have so that you could correct it? Do you want to be sabotaging? Like, no. Like, wouldn't it, if you were unconsciously, wouldn't it be valuable information for you to have so you can correct it? And if you weren't, that also would be valuable information for the other person to have. So I decided I'd write that person a very loving letter. And this letter and this loving would smooth over the whole thing and we could move on. So I wrote the loving letter. Another attempt of mine to project a wonderful self-image and uphold it. And lo and behold, I got the response of never speak to me again. Another perfect response in terms of what Spirit was bringing forward for me to learn. I had another false self-image going that if I'm loving, then anyone who I'm expressing that loving to will be loving back to me. Spirit was showing me in no uncertain terms about my reactive one inside and how when I go into that, it can create imbalance. So what was a solution for me? Number one, I realized I don't have to defend or create or have a self-image. I would say a false self-image. My identity was tied up in my behavior, or also in what other people thought about my behavior or their interpretations about my behavior. And who I am needs no defense. So I had other opportunities where people projected their upset at me to see how I handled it. And I'm happy to report I was able to bring the learning forward, and 2 weeks later got another attack. But when I hung up from that phone call, it was clear as a bell, no residual. It's interesting when I said clear as a bell, no residual. Isn't that a nice place to be? Clear as a bell. I'm not sure who came up with the phrase clear as a bell. Bell, I don't know if the bell's clear or not. Maybe clear as a pure mountain spring. No residual. But maybe the clear as a bell would be the clear sound of God that resonates. That just is. There's nothing to defend. Just a matter of being present. So we come to God with our concerns. We come to God with our crises. We come to God with our emergencies. God shows up and somehow it's all resolved. So patiently we wait. I think it's very obvious that God has a lot of patience. But I would see as patience is probably not a word in God's vocabulary, which is probably not true either. But since I mean, how else can you look at words? I mean, one way to look at it is everything I've said so far is a lie. And I think what I'm getting at is just God is. And how does that scripture go? And in God we live and move and breathe and have our being. So maybe the God in you has something to contribute this morning. I'd be very curious to know what that is, if you are willing to share. And just for a very short closing, Father, Mother God, thank you for this time together. Thank you for being with us. We acknowledge that you are handling everything and anything you'd like, any concern you have, maybe this would be a good time just to place it in the light and know it's going to be handled perfectly and is being handled perfectly for you on whatever level that may be. And just see everyone involved in any of these concerns, that God also has them. See yourself as God's representative on this earth, the facilitator of the light, bringing the light to every situation, your family, your friends, your sphere of influence, your work. See this light going out, resolving all unresolved issues in perfect ways and perfect timing. Taking care of every need on whatever level that is of everyone. We rejoice in the knowledge of you this morning and each other. And so it is.
Thank you, Dan. And we'll have music from Christina.
Before I music, I thought I'd preamble, if you can verb that, by saying that, Dan, your talk made me reflect that letting people be themselves and have their own emotional reactions to things is one way of doing things that I am trying to embrace. Letting myself be myself, like you said, who I am needs no defense. And that's how I like to play my harp. Just letting God show up and see what happens. So I'm going to let Hester be herself.
Thank you, Christina and Hester, for being yourselves. Beautiful. Thank you. At this time, let us go into our donation of love and light. And we do that by remembering we're wholly human and wholly divine. We tap into those sources with the breath, becoming increasingly clear of the love and light within us, and allowing that to expand and spread, feeding and nurturing ourselves and others. And we notice we can do this with grace and ease. It's so natural. We remember we can pause as often as we like during our days and take a breath and share our love and light. And so it is. And we will finish with a piece of music from Christina and Hester, please.